Hello, gentlemen, barbarians, savages. Rooster here, and today I'm going to continue with my series on Gyno Planet. Right here, we've gone all the way down here, and we're down here talking about government and industrial societal controls. Now, when I got into this, I quickly realized that I have to talk about a lot of stuff in this little area here. The banks, big food, big agro, big media, big oil, big pharma, the military industrial complex, a police state, and there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. So I'm going to have to break this up into little itty bitty pieces and give you a half an hour or so at a time. Because there's a lot to this. This is a big web here of government, societal, and industrial controls over the population. And the idea, if you haven't seen the Elysium Elite yet, is this is kind of where we're at, where the majority of the population is down here, basically wage slaves working, and you have your alpha males up here that are running and they're owning pretty much most of the planet, and of course the alpha females are up here as well. And so let's get right into it. The first thing that I want to talk about is the banks and how the banks are used by the elitists to control the population, control betas, control 99% of the population. I'm not going to talk that much about fiat money and the reserve system and how the banks were set up in 1911 and the Rothschild family and all that stuff. That's all over YouTube. You can see that stuff anywhere, and you have to have a basic understanding of that. And the basic understanding of that is when you make a paper bill and it's a dollar bill, that dollar bill immediately, as soon as it comes into existence, creates $1.10 of debt. If you make $100 bill, that $100 bill makes $110 of debt. So then to pay off that extra $10 of debt, you have to make a $10 bill to pay off that $10 of debt. But that when you make that $10 bill, it comes with $1 of debt. So now you have to produce a dollar bill. You see what I'm saying? You're always in debt. That's the fiat money system. There's no backing for it. The only backing behind a fiat money system that we use in our Federal Reserve is how much do you trust the government? Well, how much do you trust the government? I don't trust them very much. Has the government ever done anything really good for you? It hasn't for me. But that's what you have to understand. And is it going to collapse? I mean, you can talk to Paul Rand and I think his son is a congressman in Kentucky. He's big about going back onto the gold standard and all of that stuff. And there's evidence out there that Libya wouldn't go off the gold standard. That's why America's bombing them. Yemen wouldn't go off the gold standard. That's why America's bombing them. They don't want other countries, the United States doesn't want other countries on the gold standard to make their money have something that's backed it up, right? So I said I'm not going to talk too much about that, fractional reserve banking and all of that stuff. What I really want to talk about is the plumbing of it, the applied science of how do they get the handcuffs on you? How do they, not the big theory about reserve banking. What are the actual handcuffs that are put on you in your life every day? Okay. And with the banks, it falls into three categories. This section is going to be about big banking, right? And it falls into three categories. First category, perpetual debt. Second category, the reduction of cash or the making cash illegal. And the third way that they get the handcuffs on you is transaction control. Okay, so I'm going to say those again if you want to write them down. Perpetual debt, that's the first way. Making cash illegal, that's the second way. And transaction control. Well, you say, Rooster, okay, let's talk about this stuff. The big banks got bailed out in '08, all this stuff. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase. The biggest banks in the United States. And there's even bigger banks, in the rest of the world, but these are the ones that operate in the United States, and these are the controls that are coming down in the United States. That goes along with this as well. The consolidation of power up here into monopolies and economies of scale. You have to have that. In all of these categories, big food, big agro, big media, big oil, big pharma, the military industrial complex, and the police state, you have consolidation of power and consolidation of elitist interests to control and creation of monopolies. In the 50s, there was millions of banks. I mean, in fact, you weren't even allowed to have more than like 3 or 4 banks out of your county. And now, like I said, the banks are in those 6 big groups now. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, and JP Chase. They own all the banks. They're allowed to go anywhere, any state, overseas, and it's just all the money goes to those 6 big groups, okay? And that's part of it, consolidation of interest. Remember that. Well, let's talk about the first thing, perpetual debt, okay? Perpetual debt is based on consumerism. Here's where the MGTOW part comes in. And what is consumerism? Consumerism is female behavior, okay? Consumerism is based on social validation, okay? I deserve to have a Mercedes. I've been your wife for 30 years now, or I've been your girlfriend. I deserve this ring. I deserve. Consumerism. Buy. Pride. Envy. Any of the 7 deadly sins, gluttony, all of those things can tie right into female behavior, which is bad, consumerism, and perpetual debt. Okay? Women need social validation. That's why they go out on this retail therapy, right? Now, men on the other side of that have social stigma. Okay? What is the biggest fear that most men have? When they do surveys and they ask men what their biggest fear is, you know what their biggest fear is? Unemployment. Do you know why unemployment is the biggest fear that men have? Nightmares about being unemployed? Because they lose that job, they lose the car, they lose the house, they lose the social status, and they lose that pussy. Because women don't stick around with guys that are unemployed. So a man will sit and do a boring fucking job, push that fucking button, beep, 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 8 hours a fucking day to make money for some bitch to hold on to that social validation. Okay? And it's all based on consumerism. And everything that I talk about from this point on and the rest of this discussion, remember, it goes back to that one single point, consumerism and female behavior. What was the last thing you bought as a man? The last thing that I bought was some ice treads for my boots. Because winter's going to be coming here in northern Michigan, and I don't want to fall on my ass. Right? Very functional, purposeful purchase. Ask your wife or your girlfriend what's the last thing that she fucking bought. Purse, fucking pair of high heels, some perfume, some lipstick, okay? That's consumerism. Male behavior is, as I've said before, functional and survival oriented. Women's behavior is social validation. Okay? That's what they do. Okay? Keeping up with the Joneses. Okay? And retail therapy. Even when you feel bad about overdrawing your checking account and going over your credit rating and causing your husband to have to get a second job, you feel bad, you should go out and do some retail therapy and buy some more, right? Buying happiness, right? So that's the basis behind it. But how else do they keep you in perpetual debt? Your student loans, status. A lot of status is associated with education. The higher you can get through the education system, the more status you can get. Also, the better job you can get, right? So they put student loans are the only thing that you can't get rid of in bankruptcy because they want you climbing the ladder and they want to keep you in debt. Okay. I'm going to tell you about my student loans. I retired at 40. I paid off my student loans from college at 38. So my entire freaking working life, even though, I retired very, very fucking early and I was very freaking lucky in my occupation, I still didn't get my freaking college paid off until I was 38 years old. And I paid every freaking month on that. Okay. Keep you with the mortgage and the car. Still more female behavior, right? You're buying happiness. Now, why do you have to stop this, right? It's getting to a point where you're peeing in your own soup. We have so much consumerism and so much throwaway and so much garbage shit that goes to the landfill. We're creating our own poisons in our environment. But that's a different video, right? And the thing that you have to understand if you want to get out of this from a solutions-based thing, and I've talked about my brown belt video and watch my black belt video. If you want to get out of the perpetual debt game, watch my black belt video. I'm going to tell you how to do it in that one. But keep in mind, marketing's job is not to save you from yourself. Okay? These people that are in marketing and trying to sell shit to you, they want you to fucking go into debt. They want you to stay in fucking debt because as long as you're in debt, you have to get up and go to work tomorrow. And you have to buy that fucking pretty house for that bitch that's sitting next to you that won't fucking suck your dick more than once a year on your birthday. Okay? What else goes with this perpetual debt? Consumerism, credit rating. Credit rating is something that's new. I mean, a lot of you millennials that, you're 20 or you're 25 years old right now don't realize in 1950, credit rating was something that was associated with bonds and with businesses. If you owned a business, if you owned a plumbing business or you owned a restaurant or something like that, you had a credit rating associated with your business, right? And that was so that the people that were giving you money for capital to run your business, if you needed to borrow money for payroll or whatever, they knew how much to charge you interest, right? This individual credit rating bullshit that started in the late 70s and 80s started when Carter was in office and interest rates were fucking like 20% and it was huge and it cost you so much money to buy a house and all this stuff. They went into this credit rating thing. And now it's everywhere. But what is a credit rating actually? It's a measure of your male beta abilities. Your credit rating, when you look at your credit rating, if you're a 720, oh, you're a good beta male. You pay your bills. You create a stable function for the woman who's going to run up those fucking bills on you. Okay? That's all a credit rating is. Okay? My advice to you, since you can't, it's like hypergamy, you can't not play the game. If you want to get laid, you have to play the hypergamy game. If you want to have anything, akin to a normal life in our society, you have to at least have a credit card. You can't rent a car. You can't take a flight. You can't go out of state. You can't go on vacation. You can't get a hotel room. You can't do anything except sit in your yard and sleep in your bed without a credit card. So at the very least, you need to get one credit card. I would advise a very low limit on it, and I would advise that you don't freaking use it unless you absolutely have to, or if the system forces you to. I need a rental car. My car broke down. I need a rental car. The system's forcing you to use a credit card. You can't pay cash to do it, right? So those are the two things that keep you perpetual debt: student loans, uh, mortgage, car, all the consumerism, and trying to buy happiness, and your credit rating. If you have a low credit rating, what are they? It's a thing now. You got to get your credit rating back. You got to get your credit rating back. Okay. So I'm not going to talk too much more about that. We all understand debt. Most of us at least, lived through 2008. We saw the bubble. We saw what debt did to our country and what debt did to most of the people who realized, oh, I don't own this house. I don't own this car. The bank does. Because I tried to keep up with the Joneses, or I tried to live my life completely on my credit cards, right? All right, let's talk about the second thing. So that's perpetual debt. Let's talk about making cash illegal. This is a big deal. All of these things, keep in mind, is keeping you down here. All of these things are controls that keep you from jumping up to this Elysium level up here. People up here don't worry about this shit, okay? They're above these controls. They have more money than they need. You know, the banks come to them and tell them what their interest rate's going to be. Okay, they can have as many gold American Express cards as they want to, and they can pay them off every month. Okay, they're not worried about it. They're using these tools to keep you down here so that you can't bridge this gap. Okay. Everybody knows about this new thing that's coming out with RFID readers and credit card readers, and most people don't have more than $50 cash on them anyways. And I know some millennials don't even have any cash at all because you've been trained to do this. I'm going to tell you a story about this, why this came about. This is not just the consumer side of it, it's also the government. Let's say you're a big coffee store called Marbucks, right? I'm Tommy the Turkey, and I work at Marbucks, and I make coffee, and I have a little tip jar out here of cash, right? And there's another tip jar down here for the barista, right? And there's 40,000 of these Marbucks around the United States, and every one of them has 2 or 3 tip jars in it, right? Well, all that cash that's getting put in there, yeah, I love cash, I love cash, I love cash. It's tax-free money. Okay? You know, you put $2 or $3 in there, every single person that goes through there, that's all tax-free money. That's not taxed. The government looks at that and they say, whoa, wait a minute. If we put this on a card, then there's electric data that shows, and then they write the tip on there too. Then the tip is electronically recorded. Now, no, guess what? Old Tommy the Turkey's got to pay taxes on that, right? So it's not just Marbucks that wants these credit cards to make sure that their stuff gets done quickly or whatever, but it's also the government wants these transactions controlled because they want the tax money, right? $2-3 billion in tips goes out. It's all freaking cash. Government doesn't want that because there's no taxes paid on that, right? So keep that in mind. It's not just industry. It's also the government, okay? What else are they doing to make cash illegal? Cash deposits, your name only. That's a new thing that's come out in the United States. You can't go to the bank. When I was a kid, I used to cash my mom's checks for her, put them in the bank for her. She'd just write pay to cash, depositable by blah, blah, blah. 10 years old, I'd go in and put the money in the bank, right? Can't do that anymore. Because heaven forbid that the checking account monsters would be running around putting money into people's checking accounts. Let me just run down to the bank and put about $20,000, $30,000 into my neighbor's checking account just for shits and giggles. It's an unneeded control, but why do they do it? Because they want to monitor the transaction and they don't want you using cash. Okay? What else? Told you about the tip jar. Here's the next big thing. Civil forfeiture. Civil forfeiture is something that a lot of people don't realize. But civil forfeiture is something where the police can stop you, pull you over on the side of the road, and take any amount of money over $100. $100 cash is all that you are legally allowed in the United States to travel with on your person. Anything over $100 cash can be civilly forfeited to the police. Now, I'm going to tell you some stories about this. Started with the war on drugs because they wanted to track the money going back and forth. But as with anything, laws become bastardized to make policing profitable, right? So I'm going to tell you a couple stories. One, here's the first story. Guy from Michigan, from my state, going to California to start a business. His dad gives him $2,400 cash. Gets pulled over for speeding in Nevada. The cop asks him if he has any money on him. He says, yeah, he has $2,400, getting ready to start a new business in California. The cop takes the money, doesn't even charge the guy with a fine, doesn't charge him with a crime, doesn't charge him with anything, takes his freaking money, sends him on his way. Now, how can they take money from you if there's no crime committed? That happened. Same thing, a guy in New York City gave his kid $10,000 to pay his tuition to go to Iowa, I think it's Iowa State, right? So the kid gets accepted to Iowa State, gives him the tuition money in cash. Kid's on his way, he's freshman, 18 years old, on his way to freaking Iowa. Gets pulled over by the cops, $10,000. The cops take it, don't charge him with a crime. Kid can't get it back. Loses all of his tuition money. Another one. These gamblers, two gamblers in Las Vegas are coming back this way from Las Vegas. Poker players, right? They have $100,000 in their trunk. $15K from one guy, $85,000 from the other dude, right? Get pulled over. Cops ask them if they have any money. Yeah, we're gamblers. We got $100,000 in the back. They get out the dogs. They don't find any drugs or anything like that. Take the freaking $100,000 away from these people who are doing nothing wrong. Didn't even give them a ticket, didn't give them a speeding ticket, didn't do anything. Just took the money and let them go. Because having cash obviously is illegal. You're a drug dealer or something like that, right? Now, what happened to these guys was even worse. I think they got pulled over in Iowa. Iowa called California, which was where they lived, and had the California police raid their homes. Okay? Freeze their bank accounts in California and raided their homes to get more money from these people. No crime is committed. Just the cops think that you might have something to do with drugs or the war on drugs. How fucking wrong is that? I mean, it just drives me nuts. Okay? So, but how do they do that? Well, they're doing that right here to keep you down here. Okay? You know what you can do with $100,000 cash? There's a lot of stuff that you can do to get you up here in Alpha Land. They don't want you up here in Elysium. They don't want you fucking their fucking hot women up here, Mr. Beta. You stay down here and push the button. Tommy, push the button. Beep, 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 beep. I've been pushing the button a lot, and now I have $100,000 in cash. I'm going to buy me a ticket to Elysium and fuck me some of them hot women up there. Oh, no, sorry. No, elitist eagle. Eddie's going to come over and say, we're just going to take that money, okay, and then you go back to work, all right? Hit the road. They're gone, and then beep, 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 beep. I wonder what I did wrong. Didn't do anything fucking wrong. I don't know. All right, so that's the second thing. Now here's the third thing, transaction control. I found out about this. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I told my parents when I was 11 years old that I was going to retire by the time I was 40. And I told everybody in high school. I told all my girlfriends. I told all my buddies in the Navy. I told everybody that I ever worked with my entire life. I told them that I was going to retire when I was 40, and they all laughed at me. And I retired when I was fucking 40. But in order to do that, I bought my first mutual fund when I was 15 years old, 14 and a half maybe. Okay, and I started investing money in the stock exchange at a very, very early age. A lot of people, are my age and still haven't invested. Okay, but I bought my first mutual fund when I was like 14 and a half. Okay, and this is how I found out about transaction control. Okay, the government has you in a box. You may not think you're in a box. You may think you're not in a box. Let me tell you, you are in a box. They want you to make this much, but they don't want you to make this much. They want you to make somewhere in between there. Okay? They want you to put away money, but did you know that there's a limit on the amount of money that you can put in your 401k? That's the first box right here on your savings. That's the top of the box. Now, why in the world would they limit the amount of money that you can save? Well, I'll tell you why. They don't want a freaking entire population of people like me. Okay? You start putting money away, 100,000, 200,000. Oh, by the way, the limit is $9,000. That's the amount of money. I think it's $9,800 in a year. That's all you can put away. Now, to a lot of you guys that are working hand to mouth, working at McDonald's and stuff like that, you're like, that's fucking plenty. I can't even fucking manage to put away $1,000. But for people that can and for people that have jobs where they can, why would they limit them? These people right here on the edge that can possibly make it up here, they're going to put a fucking control on you. They're going to limit you. Why in the world would you make a law that limits how much money a person can save for themselves? And that is because they want to limit the number of people that can get rich over time. They don't want a lot of motherfuckers like me that fucking say fuck it to society when they're 40 years old, walk off the fucking grid, walk away from the tax fucking code, and start farming and hunting and having enough money to fucking buy solar panels and wind and all that shit. They don't want that. They want you down there paying taxes and getting up and going to work every day. So they put a limit on there. So they limit your savings. Okay? That's a transaction control. $18,000 for a married couple, $9,000 for a single person per year. Okay. What else do they limit? Currency controls. How much money can you deposit into the bank on a daily basis before it gets recorded. $9,000. Why? They want it to be enough if you own a restaurant or a bar, or you're a or a deposit for a car wash or something like that. But they don't want anybody getting rich. If someone deposits $100,000 into a bank account, if you have it cash in your house and you deposit it into the bank, the FBI will be on your front porch within 2 hours. I promise you. You know why? Because it happened to me. And it wasn't even that much. I think I put $5,000 in. I was a landlord. I took all the freaking money from all my rents one month and I put it into a single account for some reason instead of spreading it out. I don't know. I was building a roof or something like that. I can't remember what I was doing. I had the FBI come to my front porch. 2 guys, men in black, just like the freaking TV show. Rooster, we need to ask you some questions. Fuck you. No, I didn't say fuck you because it was the FBI. But they sat me down and told me, hey, you can't be doing this. And I'm saying to myself, what the fuck? How can you tell me I'm in a relationship with a bank, a private relationship between me and the bank, and I'm getting money from my freaking rental properties, and I can't put that in there in order to use that to put a roof on an apartment complex or something like that I'm going to do in a week or so? Fuck you. But yeah, that happens. Okay, so they limit your deposits. Okay? What else do? They limit your withdrawals. What's going on in Greece right now? They want everything electronic. They don't want cash because cash gives you freedom, gives you power. They want you on that ATM card because now when your family's starving and you go to the bank in Greece, you can get out, what is it, $35 a day is all they'll let you get out so that you can't do a run on the bank. Because guess what? The money's not in the bank. There's not enough money in the bank because we already discussed this earlier. Every $100 that's produced is $110 of debt. So you keep doing that millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, and what you have is all debt. The people that have money in the bank, the money's not really there. It's just electronically there. You understand? The real money isn't there. You can't get the money out. That's why they limit you to $35 a day when things start going bad. Okay? What else do they control? The thing that you got to understand about this, and here's a solution to this, because I'm all about solutions. First thing you should do is, if you're not a member now, is join a credit union. It's not that much better than a bank, but it's not a fucking bank. And credit unions are only residential money. They don't have anything to do with the stock market. They don't play the stock market. The only businesses that they deal with are local businesses or county businesses and farms and stuff like that. So the minute that you can get out of these big banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, if any of those banks are on your checking account or anything like that, get rid of them. And just go to your county credit union. Okay? You may not get the best deals there, but your money will be safer. Also, what you need to understand is keep cash. Keep your cash. Don't put your money in the bank. You put your money in the bank, and they are allowed to loan out 10 times the amount that you keep. Okay? If you have $50,000, let's say you have $100,000 in the bank that you keep in the bank, that allows that bank to write $1 million in loans. If you keep $99,000 under your mattress or somewhere else, and you keep $1,000 in the bank, then the bank can only write $10,000 worth of loans. So you can starve the monster. You can starve the monster by not putting your money in there. They're allowed to loan out 10 times the amount of money that's in their bank. So if everybody watched this video and everybody took most of their money out of the bank and just put it somewhere else, money market or some, savings account or something like that, and didn't allow the banks to use their money, the banks would starve. Okay. Now here's the other thing, and this goes back to making cash illegal. I forgot to mention this. Do you know that nowadays you're not allowed to keep cash in your box at the bank anymore? Your little box that has the key or whatever, where you go in the back. Not allowed to keep cash in there anymore. Why? They don't want you to have cash. They want your money in the bank so that they can loan it out. Okay? What else is going on with this? Well, like I said, the RFID chips and all of that stuff. But also, this is not just the United States. This is a global thing. I think Denmark has already said they've either already gone completely cashless or they're going to do it pretty soon. Australia is going completely cashless by 2022. So like 5 years from now, you won't be able to use cash to buy anything in Australia. And you got to think about this. It's a government note that's made by the government to use to purchase things, and they're making it illegal. What does that tell you that's coming down the line? You gotta ask your question. You gotta ask yourself this question: when the government makes its own currency illegal, what do they see coming? Ask yourself that question. In the United States right now, in Louisiana, go to a garage sale, buy a toaster for $10, 5-year felony. Well, if you pay for it cash. If you write a check or if you put it on your credit card. Now, who at a garage sale, who do you know that runs a garage sale has a credit card reader? Not very many people. But it's illegal. If I want to buy a toaster, hey, that's an old toaster from the 50s. I want to buy that. Here's a $10 bill. Illegal in Louisiana. No cash purchases for used goods. So, that's the plumbing of it, guys. 1, perpetual debt. 2, making cash illegal. 3, transaction controls. Transaction controls put you in this little box. We want you to make this much money. We're not going to allow you to make more than that. Okay? We're going to control how much you can take out of the bank. We're going to control how much you can put into the bank. Okay? We're going to control how much you can save. Okay? And there's something else about that. They have negative interest rates that are going to be coming out. So you think you can just put your money in the bank and just put $1,000 and just let it sit there and come back in 10 years? No, they're going to put negative interest rates so that every month $5 comes out of your savings account. Your savings account, not your checking account. This is where you're trying to save money, and they're going to put negative interest on it. So you let that sit there for 10 years, and that $1,000, when you go back and check it 10 years later, is $350. The bank has basically taken $650 of your money on negative interest. All right? So this is the applied actions that the big banks are using to control you. You have to understand this. I would advise go and look at some of the fractional reserve things and the fiat money things that you see on the internet and the Federal Reserve. It's all over the New World Order stuff. They've been talking about it for years. But the thing that you need to understand from a day-to-day basis is these 3 things. They try to keep you in perpetual debt. They're trying to make cash illegal, and they're going to make the use of cash illegal. And they're going to control your transactions. And they're going to make it so that you don't have any choice but to put your money in the bank. Okay? When you don't have any choice but to put your money in the bank, you're fucked. Direct deposit is almost something that's mandatory for all jobs now. Can you get a job and still get a check? Probably not. They're not going to mail a check to you. They're going to want you to have direct deposit. They're going to want you to have a bank account because they want the money in the bank. You got to understand that. Don't give them the money. Don't put it in the bank. All right, guys, that's the first one of this part here. The next thing I'm probably going to talk about is big food and big agro and how they're controlling our food supply to make sure that we stay down here and don't get up here. Or I hate to say that that's the way that they're doing it, but what they're really doing is they're extending the resources for them to use. Overpopulation causes all of this stuff, and you have scarce resources, and what the alphas and the elitists are doing is they're extending resources by controlling your use of the resources so that they can use the resources. Them and their children and their offspring and their alpha female brood can use these resources. They're going to control your use of them. All right, guys. That's all I got. If you have some counter arguments or you think there's something that I missed, I'm sure there's tons of stuff that I missed on this. There's so much information. Go ahead and write it down on the bottom. Maybe I'll add it into one of my other videos or something like that. But as always, take it easy. Rooster out.